undoubtedly the oldest and cheapest form of transport. Sometimes very decorative, but not necessarily utilitarian. Cannot always be relied upon. Often grossly overloaded. Often, it may not be very successful if the going is rough. It looks as if you need a retread, old man. Valuable find? Well, hardly, but the rightful owner seems to think that one good turn deserves another. This is certainly the easy way to travel. It is even more certainly the best and most inexpensive form of powered transport. The document the old boy found was a test card for a Triumph motorcycle, the last link in the production chain that starts with the frame assembly. The tubes and lugs for the frame are pegged together and assembled in a jig ready for brazing. A perfect joint is made by applying brazing metal and borax when the joint has reached the correct heat. Craftsmen now true the front and rear frames by hand to give perfect alignment for all bolt holes and axle bearings. Step by step, gauging and truing proceeds until the final test is made and the frames are ready for enameling and subsequent assembly. Typical of the scrupulous care throughout production and assembly of this world-famous motorcycle is the washing, before assembly, of all parts to remove swarf and grease, leaving only a protective film of oil. Valves are assembled in the cylinder head and ground in. The crankshafts are assembled to the flywheel and subsequently tested for truth to a tolerance of plus or minus a quarter of a thou. Balance weights are added to each crank pin. These represent a percentage of the weight of the reciprocating parts. Careful drilling of the flywheel in the right place eventually produces a crank assembly that rests in any position on a knife edge. The connecting rods are added and the big end nuts tightened. The register dots on bolts, big ends and nuts were added before machining to ensure accurate assembly. Big and little ends are bored simultaneously at fixed centers, ensuring perfect alignment. The perfectly finished conrod is assembled and placed in a rack for assembly in the engine. The crankcase is placed on a jig and the flywheel assembly added. By selective assembly, the gear wheels are matched until a perfect train is achieved. This is the final check, for from the earliest stages, extreme care is taken in the production of Triumph gears. The camshafts are now assembled to the selected gears after production on the latest type of cam forming machine to ensure a perfect form. The gears are cut accurately in banks of 4 to within 3 thou of their finished size. Then brought to size on this superb shaver, which gives the perfect tooth profile on which so much depends. The crankcase is bolted up, the sump plate and filter added, and the engine placed in a cradle on the assembly line for completion. The crankshaft pinion and intermediate gear wheel are assembled, pistons are lubricated, piston rings compressed, and the cylinder block is added and bolted into position. The production of the cylinder is worthy of closer study. After the liner has been pressed in, it is placed on a bore-matic machine and the cylinders bored perfectly on fixed centers with a tolerance of 1/10 of a thou. The perfect mirror finish is obtained by honing, but such a perfect finish would be useless if the piston was not produced with equal care. The piston is turned and the grooves for the piston rings cut. It is finally turned to its perfect shape. The magneto is added and timed by means of an indicator which is marked to show when the pistons are in the correct position. Valves are timed by dots on the gear wheel. The all-important engine number is added. The cylinder head is bolted down, rocker boxes fitted, and adjustments made to the tappets. Constant testing of the engines is carried out by means of a dynamometer. The engine is bolted in position and then turned over for a few minutes before starting up for the first time. When running, the readings on the various gauges enable the actual power output to be calculated. A good power unit demands a good gearbox. The Triumph gearbox is of simple construction, although it is extremely robust, as indeed it must be, in order to transmit reliably the high power of the Triumph engine. The gears are quickly and easily dropped into place, lubricated and enclosed in the gearbox by the inner cover. The kickstart ratchet pinion is added, followed by the outer cover with kickstart and gear change mechanism. The clutch is now the only major part we need. The Triumph clutch incorporates a shock absorber, the drive being taken through rubber pads which absorb transmission shocks. The paddle is first placed into position, and then the large rubbers inserted. They are compressed and the small rubbers placed in position. The cover is added. And the clutch completed in the normal way. From these simple beginnings, the finished wheel is made. The lacing of hub and rim is more intricate than it might appear here. But even when completed and the spokes tightened, the wheel will need truing by a skilled craftsman. The spokes are tightened where necessary, and the wheel tested and retested until all irregularities are removed and the wheel is perfectly true. When the final stage is reached and all spokes equally tensioned, the wheel is true and will revolve free from shake. Without the blue haze and broken fingernails that usually accompany the operation, tires and inner tubes are fitted and inflated in an average time of 2.5 minutes each. The final assembly is commenced, and very quickly a motorcycle begins to emerge from the mass of sub-assembled parts. The front fork is put together with great care, the hydraulics being individually tested before being bolted in position. Oil is added and assembly completed. After the fitting of the wheels, handlebars and gearbox, the machine is wheeled to the assembly line where the power unit is the first item to be added. After the engine has been bolted in position, the inner transmission cover is fitted, followed by the clutch, primary chain, engine sprocket, and outer chain cover. The clutch is adjusted to give a perfectly smooth operation. After chain tensioning and tracking for wheel alignment, the frame is numbered and the carburetor added. Followed by the petrol tank, twin seat and chain guard. With the exhaust pipe and batteries fitted, the machine runs down from the line for final assembly of the electrical system. The Triumph headlamp nacelle is unique. The top conceals electrical equipment that skilled hands assemble at speed. After assembly, the machines are driven on an initial running-in fixture to make certain before their road test that everything is working smoothly. The engine does not fire, but is driven by the revolving drum in the floor. Speed is gradually increased until 35 miles per hour is reached and maintained for a period of 10 minutes. During the course of the test, all gears are used and oil circulation checked. After 10 minutes, the machine is removed, passed for road testing. If we follow some of the machines from the packing department to their destination, we find them in use, for example, by the French police. French manners make it almost a pleasure to receive a ticket, as this motorist found. Traffic control is exacting work, demanding extreme skill and dexterity in very small spaces. To be escorted as a VIP around Paris and down the Champs-Élysées is a most exhilarating experience. Watch the gendarme on the left. Surely that's a London bus. Yes, indeed. The Metropolitan Police are also Triumph users. In this part of London, ceremonial and smartness are almost compulsory. Horsepower of two kinds is to be seen in the Mall. And speaking of horsepower, more effort is visible at Epsom. But we had to come here to see the police themselves receiving a ticket. Instructions are given to the man on patrol by portable two-way radio equipment. Here he is, the man who knows good riding when he sees it. I wonder what he'd do with this in a London street. This team of British Army riders from the Royal Corps of Signals really demonstrates what can be done on Triumph machines. But we do not for a moment suggest that the average motorcyclist tries to do the same. This is an exercise for hitchhikers. There are already 5 men on the machine, and 4 is 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, and 1 is 20. The machine is a standard Triumph twin, not reinforced in any way. And there are the 20 riders. A Triumph places some of the world's most beautiful scenery at your feet. In trials, the Triumph has a fine reputation. But of course, the ability of the riders and the reliability of the machines are equally tested on courses such as these. This, we must add to dispel any doubts, is not a typical English road. At the Isle of Man, preparations are being made for the Clubman's Trophy races. Here are some of the entrants weighing in, under the critical but kindly eye of Jeff Duke, himself a Triumph dealer. Last-minute discussions as nervous tension increases before the start. A dip of the flag, and they're off on the most grueling course in the world. The success of the Triumph, especially as a reliable machine for everyday use all over the world, is due to the keen personal interest taken by the entire staff in its production. Design is personally supervised by the managing director, Mr. Edward Turner. The closest attention is given to even the smallest detail, and every effort taken to ensure that Triumph owners the world over have their needs fully met in every way. From this office, the supply of spares to all dealers at home and bulk supply to overseas distributors is controlled. This is part of the spacious stores with their 7,000 different items. Machines for overseas are dismantled and securely packed for the voyage. These cases awaiting transport to Tasmania, New Zealand, Sweden, USA, Canada, Strait settlements, South America are typical of the loads that leave the works daily for all parts of the world to satisfy motorcyclists of all tastes and ages. For our old friend, we can find a machine that has been on the road longer than he has, and what is more, is apparently sounder in wind and limb. For thrilling, reliable and comfortable transport, it's a Triumph every time.